Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for the most popular and least listened to podcast in the world, the Sixth Sense Media Podcast, with your host, Mike Phelan.
The Kinians are an alien race that settled on Earth 500,000 years ago. They are back, Jim. The Ash has great power and is used as a weapon by the aliens. And we need you to make contact with one of them. Try to find out what their purpose is now.
There are a lot of things here at the base that will defy the logic the rest of the world knows.
When I saw what the Ash was capable of, I wanted to run.
You should have.
Let's go!
In protecting the ones we love, the world can be stronger. You must trust yourself.
Let's get this! Hurry!
So, how are you doing today?
Really good, really good.
Good. I watched Agent Revelation today, and it was interesting seeing you in the role that you play, because it's kind of a mentor slash almost sensei like role. How did this all come together? How did you get into this production?
As with most things these days, it's either an audition, but most of the time it's just people calling up and saying, "Hey, would you consider this?" And this is one of the scripts we got. This was 2 years ago, actually. And it was one of the scripts we got, and I read it. I liked the part very much, and I thought it was interesting. The funny thing is that you never know what the production is going to be like. You just kind of, unless you're there like earlier and you see it or something like that. But usually we all just show up and you're always a little surprised. But I thought the script was good. I thought it was something that you could work with, which is important. That you said, okay, well, I can do this. There's things I can do with this, and I have my little backstory that I set up and everything. So it was kind of an easy decision to make.
How do you get yourself mentally prepared for a role? Do you have a certain process that you go through, or do you just pretty much go with the flow as you're rehearsing?
Pretty much. I when I start, I just make sure I know the lines. Like I know every line back and forth. So that that's gone, and you don't have to deal with that, and you can deal with, your motivation, as they say. I hate to use that word, but it's true. Your motivation, and it's not a difficult process. It's just, okay, what do I want what I want to portray? What do I want this guy to project? And then you go from there. And if you do it long enough, you know what to do. I mean, it's not like you got to run around the block 10 times and do 50 push-ups and okay, now I'm ready. It's like, you just go there and the other thing too is that a lot of times the directors have a different idea than what you have in mind. In this case, it wasn't really the case. Derek wanted the character to be a certain way, and I said that's fine. And I gave him a little backstory to help with my motivation. When I do the lines, my motivation for the lines. But there wasn't really a moment. There was only one moment, and it wasn't about the lines or about the acting. It was about a scene where you watched the show, right? Well, where I get a pump full of holes, towards the end. And I wanted to die a certain way. And we went back and forth, but in a very, very cordial way, like I go, I'd really like to do this. And I'd show him. He goes, yeah, that's good, Mike, but I'd really want you to do this. And I go, no, I think this is going to be much better, So we went back and forth for about 2 minutes, and then I said, okay, I'll just do it your way.
How much of that give and take relationship is essential for an actor and a director?
Depending on who you are, if you're the lead, it's extremely important. I mean, extremely important. And I've been doing it for so long that I've made a little study. And the really great directors, they will allow you to go off the reservation a little bit. But what they'll do is you'll say, look, I really would like to try this. You know, you always basically come to, that's what I do. And they'll say, okay, well, show me. And then you go, and 50% of the time they say, yeah, do that. And 50% they'll say, no, I think you should do it this way because of this. And so it's a very intelligent give and take. And the writers too. I worked with some amazing writers who I'll say, God, I just can't say that, I don't know how to do that. And they'll go, really? Well, what do you want to say? Well, you want me to say this and this and this, but I can't say it. They'll go, oh, okay. And okay, what about this? And I go, oh, that's better. And it's very on the opposite side. Directors who aren't really in command of their art, or writers who have pretty monstrous egos, they will not want you to do anything different. And when you ask them, you say, well, why am I here? They'll go, look, just do what I tell you. It's that. And Derek wasn't, interestingly enough, we didn't have any sort of discussions. I think there was one maybe discussion where I was kind of going, I don't know, but otherwise, the whole shoot was fairly easy.
There were quite a number of big open shots that it was kind of hard for me to tell because I was watching it on a computer instead of a big screen, but I couldn't quite tell if it was a lot of green screen or not, but some of those large underground bunker scenes, was that green screen or was that an actual practical set?
You know what? There was, interesting enough, they don't use green screen anymore.
Blue screen?
Not even blue screen. They actually can take whatever's there and put in what they want. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that was there. I mean, when I did my work, we were in rooms. We were basically in small rooms, and the big shots were all. I don't think there was a green screen. I don't remember, but it was just a huge room. And then when it came out and I saw it, they put in all the stuff. I mean, they put in everything.
Oh, okay.
But there weren't any green screens. There wasn't any blue screens or green screens. I think those things are kind of old hat now.
The last time I saw one, I was on the set for Lost in Space, and we were in one soundstage where it was like a 40-foot tall green screen that covered half the soundstage. I was like, what is this supposed to be? Because there was a prop in the middle of it. Like, how can you act and that's all you see is just one green field of view?
Well, the thing is that some people ask me when I did the other show, they were like, oh, well, how do you do? I said, it's acting. You really don't. I mean, George Clooney wasn't actually operating on people, in ER, and Tom Cruise isn't really a fighter pilot, although he's a pilot, so it's all just kind of acting, and it's not really anything different. But I think like I said, there was a bunch of shots where there wasn't a green screen in sight, and they just had, I think the technology is so advanced now, they don't even need green and blue screens.
I'm sure it's definitely helpful that you don't have to surround your actors with just a bunch of artificial stuff.
No.
More to say. When in other roles, when you get into a role, do you ever have difficulty when you get out of the role shaking that persona out of your head?
No.
You could drop it like that as soon as you're done,
I'm
as soon as
gone.
you're wrapped.
It's when I walk off the set, or when they say cut, I'm like going, okay, what's there really isn't that thing. Even with the character in Star Trek, it was 12-hour, 15-hour days,
Mm-hmm.
and when they said cut, we were out of character. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
weren't walking around like that. So no. Some
Okay.
people it's difficult. So I've heard that people, on the other hand, like they can't get rid of it, or else they have to be in character the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that hasn't been my experience with me.
As far as how COVID has affected the entertainment industry, how has it affected you or your work this past year?
I do a lot of voiceovers,
Mm-hmm.
a lot more than I do on camera stuff. So that has been affected. I mean, they've done a few things, here at my house, with just a camera and the computer and everything like that, and the microphone I have. And I've auditioned online for speaking parts, on camera stuff. And interestingly enough, before COVID, a lot of stuff was online, where you go and you videotape yourself, you videotape your audition. So it was already heading toward that direction. The only thing it did was it shut down a lot of productions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just shut it down. And that's fine with me. I mean, at this point in my career, I only do stuff that I really want to do, that is really interesting. My agents and managers just, I'm sure they don't have any hair left because I am just like passing on everything. I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to do that. And they'll say, well, what about this? And I say, yeah, I'll do that. And they're just going, why do you want to do that? No, I don't know. Just feels right. So that's kind of where I am right now. So
When auditioning in front of a casting director or taping it, which do you feel gives you the better chance of landing a role?
It's funny. It's a very good question because if you do it in your house, or at a facility and you're just, with the reader and you're sending it off, you have the chance to do it as many times as you like. When you're auditioning, you don't have that luxury. On the other hand, when you're auditioning with people, they can give you direction.
Mm-hmm.
They can say, okay, do it this way. So you have a better chance of nailing the audition. So it's a little bit of, I directed a few shows and I got to tell you, a lot of times it just doesn't matter. You could have the best audition and they'll choose somebody else for some random reason, so you just do the best you can. But I do like doing it at home because I like the idea that you can do it over and over and over again and look at it and go, oh, that's terrible. Because the other thing you got to realize is that those tapes, they're out there now.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to run for office, they have tapes of you doing, silly stuff. So you want to give it a really good reading. You want to do something really good all the time if you're going to do it that way. So that's kind of how it happened. I mean, when I started in the business, you go into an audition and the first audition, if it was kind of a big role, would be with the casting director. And then it would be with all the producers and everything, like, 6 people. And then you come back to the network where there's like 10 people in a room. So it was really a performance.
Does it? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Does it kind of kick in a fight or flight instinct for actors when they're in front of that many people and they have that one shot?
I can only speak for myself. It is, when I was doing a lot of auditioning, it was no big deal. You just kind of go in there and they teach you, a lot of the coach I went to, he taught you that okay, first of all, this is your time. You know, this is your 10 minutes. So you can, this, you know, you own it. And so you do whatever you want to do. If you want to do it again, do it again. You know, if you say, well, what do you think? Well, I don't, well, let me do it another way. You know, whatever the case, because usually you walk in and it's sort of like you're encroaching on their time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, thank you for having me in here. I really appreciate it. Now you know, they want you in there, and so it's your time. And so it's not a fight or flight, but there is something for me. It's that first line. I have got to get that first line out. You know, if I don't get that first line, then I'm dead for the rest of the reading. So
My last question, which I usually like to ask on all my interviews, is since you have so much experience, what would be your advice for those people that are just now trying to break in to the business?
I would say really learn your craft, because depending on what you know what you want to do in the business, if you want just a meteoric, you know, rise and a precipitous fall, then you know just go out there, because there's so much, there's so many platforms and so much work out there because of, you know, the cables and cable stations and HBO and Hulu and Amazon. I mean, all these things. But if you want a really long, rewarding career, then learn your craft. You know it, and be ready, because you never know when that call is going to come. And if that call comes, you definitely have to be ready. Sometimes, you know, people get 2 or 3 calls in their, you know, in their career, or 3 or 4 or 5. Some people get 1, you know, so you just have to be ready.
Yeah, I got that one. I had one.
Really? What was that?
It was for a reality television show.
Uh-huh.
with my wife. So so yeah, that was our one show. She's been on a couple others, but yeah, that was my one big one, to look goofy in front of a lot of people. So yeah, that was my one and done. So
yeah. I mean, I would say that's what you got to do. I mean, you know, in the old days, when I started, you have to do plays, because they're the only things that would hire, you know, young actors, you know. So I would say do as many of those as you can. But now with all the platforms out there, I mean, you just got to be ready. And nobody really looks at, you know, a resume and say, oh, they've done theater, and oh, they've done this. It's out there. I mean, it's sort of like, you know, anybody could do it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay. Is there anything else that you have coming up on the slate that we should be on the lookout for?
Well, 2 things. I just finished writing. I've written 5 things, and I'm not a writer per se. Like, I'm not like a guy, you know, that they hire as a writer. But I enjoy writing, and people really like my writing a lot. And I said, oh yeah, thank you very much, but I just write stuff I'm passionate about. And so I just finished my Western opus. And because I love Westerns. I mean, I've always loved Westerns as long as I've been alive. And so my manager said, well, Michael, do you have an idea? And I said, of course I do. And so I took this COVID time to write it. And we are looking at trying to find an outlet, somebody who would do it. And that's where we are right now.
Awesome. What is it about Westerns that brings you in? Because it seems like it's kind of become like that niche thing, not like huge like it used to be. So you don't hear many people talking about. But what is it about Westerns that you find so endearing?
Well, it is raw, and you know, on basic levels. I mean, the good guys are really good. The bad guys are really bad. There's no ambiguity. And so you have that, which is easy to define. And then from there, you can be as interesting as you want. I mean, one of my favorite is the Magnificent Seven, back in the 60s. early 60s. And, it's a message. It was a message. I mean, they came there and at the end they said, hey, we're the gunmen making all the money and we lost. We'll always lose. The farmers win.
Mm-hmm.
And that is sort of the message, and it's always been real exciting for me. My brother and I grew up with Westerns, and then from the 70s until the 90s, there weren't that many great Westerns, in my opinion. The last one was Clint Eastwood. That was a brilliant piece of filmmaking. And there's just something about that kind of raw, black and white kind of emotion that always grabs me. I mean, the script that I wrote is the same thing. I mean, there's, it's a guy who's gone through a transition and there's black and white. And if he sees it, he goes, that's not right, and he goes and does something else. So I like that. And, I mean, for some reason, I don't know, when we're growing up, we're boys. So we played cowboys and Indians, all day long. And maybe that's why it's such a testosterone driven genre. You know what I mean? That, as young boys, that's what you did, cops and robbers, cowboys and Indians, we didn't ever play lawyer. Dick Durbin, lawyer,
Playing Wall Street mogul just doesn't have a nice ring to it when you're 8 years old.
Hey, let's play Wall Street mogul. Yeah,
Just sitting there with just a New York Times, just going through the stocks.
I know who's going to be the whores. But yeah.
Awesome.
So that's where we're trying to get it done. And it's a good time right now because the character is African American and there's a lot of content out there for African Americans these days. And we think it has a good chance. But I want to be the Clint Eastwood. I want to direct it. I wrote it. I want to direct it,
You don't want to be in front of the camera for this one?
Oh, yeah, I do. Oh, yeah.
Oh, so you want to do both?
I want to do all, yeah. I wrote it, so I want to do both. I want to direct it and star in it.
How taxing do you think that would be to both direct and be the star of your own film? I can't imagine that's an easy thing to do.
Well, interestingly enough, I found it very easy. I directed and acted in a couple of Deep Space Nines.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it easy. I found it very easy. You just have to have a great stand-in, that's the main thing. And you have to have a great director of photography. So you can trust him that he's going to get the shot. In the old days, they didn't have monitors, they didn't have, things set up where you can rerun the scene and do it. Okay, let's do it again because this one. And which is fine. They did just fine, with that. And so you have to have a good DP that can say, okay, this looks good or that looks good, or did we get it? Yes, we did, and let's move on. And directing to me is not difficult. The politics are difficult, but the actual work is really easy for me. So I don't think it'd be a problem. I just, and plus, if you're the lead and you're the director, who are you going to argue with,
When you do get this made, what are some of the areas in the U.S. that you want to shoot in? Do you want to shoot in Arizona, Colorado, California? What are those big, spacious, beautiful spots where Westerns are always filmed do you want to film in?
Yeah, well, there's I haven't seen it yet, but Arizona, Colorado, and Utah have some places that people have been shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Canada has some gorgeous places, and so we want to get someplace because it's going to be all outdoors pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So we think that, and it takes place in New Mexico, Colorado, and parts of Arizona. So if we can go there without getting too out in the wilderness kind of thing, then I think that would be the place to do it. That would be the place. I love Canada. But there's a lot of sort of Canadian stuff you have to go through.
Mm-hmm.
The people on the set, the people behind the camera, things like that, But they shot some beautiful stuff. I mean, they shot Hell on Wheels. Is that it?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, they shot that in Canada too.
Yep. And a lot of the outdoor shots for Lost in Space and
Oh,
also
really?
Altered Carbon were done in Vancouver. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that there's, and I shot a couple of shows up in Vancouver, and they have some beautiful stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a possibility too. It's kind of wide open. So once they give us the green light, as they say, then we'll tackle that part. But the difficult part is going to be the casting.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difficult part. Just because this is my first feature and you really want to do it right, so you have to, get the right people. And it's the politics. People are going to say, oh, you got to get a big name. You got to get a big name. You got to this. You got to, everybody's going to tell you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to say, no, let's just shoot the thing with the best actor that we can find.
Mm-hmm.
And then, forget about all this stuff. I mean, my I can tell you this one last thing is my inspiration has always been the old-time directors, Howard Hawks and John Ford and those guys. And then Coppola.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the two Godfather, the 1 and 2, the most beautiful movies ever made. I mean, literally gorgeous and amazing. So those are and Scorsese, super interesting. But lately it's, and Clint Eastwood, but lately it's been Tarantino.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Super interesting.
A particular era of Tarantino's work or all together?
Yeah, I loved Pulp Fiction.
Mm-hmm.
I liked Reservoir Dogs, but I was a real fan of Pulp Fiction. Kill Bill was amazing. Inglourious Bastards. I mean, for God's sake, that was.
It was a great use of the cast too. A lot of names that you did not expect to show up in that movie were there.
And I'm sorry if Brad's watching. I think that was Brad Pitt's best work. Really, he was like.
He sold it. Yeah, he sold that character.
Insane, and then his last one, Once Upon a Time.
Mm-hmm.
That one was, once again, he takes you on a ride and you don't know where you're going,
mm-hmm.
but he's taking you for a ride. And it's always satisfying at the end. And that's the thing. Always very interesting, very cool, very exciting. There were moments when I'm going, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh, and then all of a sudden you go, ooh, okay.
I think he's the only director that can whip out a flamethrower in the end of a movie with that much serious action and stakes and make it work without it seeming goofy.
Yeah. Oh, and my favorite is that, I'm sure, I don't know, but if I was going to write something like a through line, it'd be, what if the Manson family went to the wrong house? But not only to the wrong house, they went into a house where the guy is capable of killing them, where they really went to the wrong house, and what would happen? And it was just brilliant. It really was good. And interestingly enough, I didn't steal from him, but I like that kind of writing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I wrote this Western, my manager did say, "Oh, we see a little Tarantino in there." And I go, "Good, good."
You've been listening to the Sixth Sense Media Podcast. You can find more of our celebrity interviews and roundtable discussions on iTunes, Podbean, and SoundCloud. Be sure to check out our movie, TV, and video game coverage at sixthsense.com and fanbolt.com.